All right, so our line calls, as I mentioned. First line call is simple. It's base. Base sends our defensive ends or tackles to C gap, which means the stacks behind them have B. Unless we've given them a blitz call of some kind, the nose and the mic are going to coordinate with each other. One has one A gap, one has the other A gap, at least to start. Okay. I mentioned that sometimes these guys, the C gap player is going to have contain. That's going to depend on what's happening out here. So if these guys are in coverage, if they're in man coverage, for example, they can't do that and contain. So at that point, your C gap player has to be your contain guy. So in this case, it would be your defensive ends or your tackles. This is the opposite, right? Pinch. So if we're in pinch, basically what we're going to see is that the tackles are now going inside and the linebackers are now going out to C. So it's just the opposite of what we saw first. Now, if there needs to be a contain player in C gap and these guys can't do it, now it's the stack backers. Okay. Slant, exactly as it sounds, right? Again, strong, weak, field, short, however you want to do it. This is the one place where your linebackers have to have their thinking caps on a little bit because they have to understand which way we're slanting based on the call and that I have the opposite. Okay, so if we're slanting to the right, I got the left gap. Okay. And then the last call that we'll make is a solid call. This is the only time we're making a two gap call for the defensive lineman. And the linebackers behind them, we need, obviously are going to play off of that and sort of make them right. Okay. We would typically use this. One of the times we would use this call is if we need to kind of settle the guys down a bit, right? If they're sort of slanting, getting way out of their gap, we're getting washed down. Sometimes we'll do this for a couple plays just to kind of settle everybody down. Sometimes we'll do it because, it's the best thing for the scheme we're seeing that, angling and moving around is actually hurting us against this scheme. Playing it straight up is actually more fundamentally sound. Okay. If a guy is blitzing, they would still obviously have one gap. Okay. So for example, if this side's blitzing, he could go B, he would go C, but everybody else would just stay solid. Okay. So those are our line calls. Again, pretty simple. All right. Get into our blitzes. First one is Axe. Okay. Axe got its name because it's an A gap blitz. So the Mike backer is going to A gap. So we could call this Axe strong, Axe weak, Axe two, Axe away, however you want to call it. The call is for the linebacker. Okay. So if we say Axe weak and that's left, he's going weak side, nose guard's going opposite. Okay. In terms of marrying things up, to me, you compare this with any line call you want and any coverage. We're only giving up this middle zone here. So I think you can play zone or man or cover four or anything you want behind it. It's a pretty vanilla blitz. Same thing with this. So strike would be sending one of the stacks. Again, we don't call this a different thing if it's B versus C. We just marry it to the call and expect the guys to know what's going on. So if it's base, strike, this guy is the defensive tackle is going to C, he's going B. If it was pinch, strike, he's going B, he's going C. Okay, very simple. We'll typically put the most of the blitz package in one session because it's pretty easy to do. Okay. If we call double strike, then again, it's just both guys going now. Right. So this is a slant to the left side and double strike. These guys are both going right. Okay. For one guy going, just like Axe, I feel like you can pair this with any line call, any coverage. We're only vacating one zone. The middle backer would probably make an adjustment if you were in zone, but it'd be pretty straightforward. This one, I'm much more likely to say we're going to be in cover one or four. Okay. Just because we're vacating a couple of zones here. All right, Eagle. This is going to send, it's called Eagle, but sometimes this could be for the Hawk as well. Okay. This is basically telling the guy on the outside that you're coming. We will usually pair this with pinch or slant. Why? Because if we don't, sometimes what happens is you get two guys in the same gap, right? This guy goes outside, this guy goes outside, and all of a sudden we are very solid out here and not so solid in here. Okay. So usually we would pair this up with pinch or slant to try to make sure they're not eating each other's gaps. Okay. We would typically go and cover one here, although any motion coming across to this guy may cause him to check out of it if we don't feel that we're solid in our coverage behind that. All right. Double eagle, we don't do this a ton, but when we do, we're sending both guys. We would always pair this with pinch for the same logic. We don't want them to be in the same gap. And we would pretty much always put this in cover one with the understanding that there may need to be some motion checks if we don't have enough people behind it. Okay. You could definitely sneak these guys out if that's a thought that you have, though it will make you a little bit thinner in here. All right. Smack. We got this because the S, the stack, and the M. Very creative call, I know. But smack is both of these guys going to the same side. You can pair this with any call. Again, it's just this guy's got to know if he's going there, I'm going C gap instead. Okay. So pair this with any call, basically just a way to jam up one side of that offensive line. Maybe that's where you think that their heaviest run tendency is, or that's their weakest pass protection. But this can be a good way to really pressure one side of that line. We would typically go cover 1 or 4 behind this because, again, we're vacating a couple of zones right here. All right, twist. So this one's a little bit fancier, right? The idea here is I want to get this guard to step one way and attack the other. So basically what will happen here is the Mike would go first. So he would come across, and we tell him this is one time where make it obvious you're coming. So if you want to start cheating up, really get this guy's attention, that's okay. You're going to go here, and we want this guy to scrape paint right off of him and attack inside here. What we're hoping is that the nose steps with this guy, he steps out here, and this guy comes through clean. Okay. But again, this is one of those times where if they show it early, good offensive lines will just make a call and pick it up. So he can show early. We want him to not show it until it's ready to go. We would pair this with base to make sure that we don't end up with people in the same gaps. And we would play probably 1 or 4 behind it. All right. Hammer, we're sending the hawk or eagle from the outside, and we're sending the Mike on the inside. We would pair this usually with pinch or slant. Slant would be going away from it. So, for example, we would go slant strong, hammer weak. That would send these guys all to the opposite side, which allows him to come without having a guy in his same gap. Okay? Don't do this a ton. But, certain situations where you really got to sell out to, stop the run or sell out on short yardage, maybe we'll do this. But full house would be all 3 guys going in the middle. Pair it with any line call. Definitely got to run man behind this. And I would strongly suggest having a free safety because if this misses and you don't have somebody behind it, it's probably 6, right? So we need to make sure. I know it's hard, look at something that's on paper. How does this miss? It happens. And if there's not a free safety back there to kind of be an eraser, it can go from a potential big play to a potential big play the other way. All right. One other that's kind of creative that I like, Razor. Razor, we will cheat this guy up. This is pre-snap, so we will cheat him up, and we will send this guy hard down the line while this guy is on a contained path. All right. So this guy can actually really just go hard right down the line here because he knows I have a guy outside of me. I have somebody else running contain. This can be a really nice blitz against some runs. It can be something that really messes with some zone read stuff, right? He can track down that back while this guy's still there on the quarterback to handle that. So there's some nice opportunities for this one. We don't run it a ton, but against certain schemes, it's pretty cool. And then another one we don't run a ton just because we don't typically like our corners not being in coverage. But a weak corner blitz, Cobra, we would send our corner. We would slant away from this and send the weak corner. And the safety would have to pick up number 1 in this case. The big problem, of course, is you have to make sure that everybody's accounted for, right? So if the safety's got him, then your stack linebacker probably has him in that scenario, which is, how comfortable are you with a linebacker on a tight end? Depends on how you want to do it. Okay.